What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what caused this very exciting day, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi had a kick-ass day, went up 8.77%, extending that further even after hours, up another 0.73%, 25.66 the low, 27.61 the high, and 63.2 million shares being traded. So only data point that really came out today, this morning, was Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. Didn't come in line with expectation, so came in at negative 10.4 versus a forecast of -1. Market kind of indirectly took that as a positive because it further justified a rate cut, but we also did have now the second Fed speaker hinting to a December cut. So we did have Williams on Friday, and then we did have Waller this morning. So pretty good stuff. Market took that as just time to enter into euphoria. Everything was going higher. Right now we do have a 77.1% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. And as I mentioned on my weekend video, we have a lot of big data coming out tomorrow, such as ADP employment, PPI, retail sales, and also consumer confidence. All of that is going to change the outlook of this tenfold. So it's either going to really push it to that 100% range or really break it down back to 50 to 30%. So we'll have to wait and see how that does play out, but the market seemed very pumped up today. A lot of people, retail, because a lot of speculative kind of stocks really went higher. Today there wasn't any news from SoFi, no SEC filings at all, so it was just largely piggybacking off of the broader market. Shorts did return 793,000 shares, 9.5% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 112.57 million shares overall are being shorted. Aside from tomorrow, I do anticipate probably Wednesday through Friday to be very low volume. Thursday, of course, I think the market does close early at 1 o'clock anyways, but don't anticipate like any crazy activity Wednesday onwards. So tomorrow, like I said, is going to be the big day for the market. And the fact that shorts did return is kind of bullish if you ask me. But aside from that, looking at the options, we did have 51 million in calls, 14 million in puts. So I know that sounds like a lot, but in comparison to what it normally has been kind of experiencing, it's rather low, but 50% of all the options being done today were still bullish in nature. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be kind of around that, looks like 28.50 to 29 on the table. Bears are anticipating for it to kind of be between that 25 to 25.50. So it is all going to come down to the data, so it could kind of hit either of them, either kind of spectrum if you ask me. And no different than what I did on my video on Friday. I said, hey, you know what, even though today is very exciting, if you actually look at a lot of the data, it's actually not that bullish. Only because what I mean by that is the stock and just the broader market was getting moved through algorithmic trading. No different than today. So if anything, you actually saw institutions like selling like crazy. So these are all the big transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000, most of which are sells. As you can kind of see, anything that shows as a bid is a sell. So it looks like institutions were really selling. Obviously there was occasional buys, but the big ones for today, 194.8 million, 27.4 million, 11.6, 7.8, 7.6. So again, might not necessarily be the best. I think just overall, a lot of people get so emotionally hyped up, and then like for instance today, everyone's excited, right? So I think it's just a lot of people, even on my Patreon. On a side note, I did post just kind of talking about the two Fed speakers. So we did have Waller and Williams. Even though technically the market is focusing on the positive only being a 25 basis point cut, a lot of people seem to be ignoring the fact what they are really signaling. And I don't ever like to spread fear or anything, so I just kind of posted on the Patreon as well as my stacked account, just so as a FYI. But basically they are hinting to a December cut because of a softening labor market and a softening kind of economy overall. So this is where I guess it depends. If you're retail, you're focusing on kind of the rate cut aspect. If you are big money, you seem to be focusing on the weak side of the data. So it's all one of those kind of things, glass half full type of scenario. So again, based on the data, doesn't looks like institutions didn't really buy that much today. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. Dark pool is often enough used by shorts and hedge funds, and the fact that shorts did return today, it is fair to assume that most of these are linked to them. So you had a big one, 12.5. That was just done actually about an hour ago, or about 20-30 minutes ago. 10 million, 3.5, 2.4, and so forth and so forth. With it closing at 27.40, it is trading between these 2 points, so this R1 and the pivot. So 25.77 is that strong support. Kind of didn't really, actually it did touch that a little bit for the low today. So low for today was 25.66, so that's kind of a good support level. And then 27.70 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance that wasn't tested today. So 27.61 was the high. So just kind of watch for a lot of these, or even extending it further. So 28.89, 30.82 as the following targets, and then 23.84 as the following support level. Because like I said, I think tomorrow's data is going to be a very, very big deal. When it comes down to SoFi on the actual chart, I did also mention on my weekend video saying that Monday was going to be huge, that it needed to really get above this 100-day moving average, and it did that and more. So that's going to be something again to really watch for. So today was kind of wedge bound between that 100 or that 10-day moving average and that 100-day moving average. So most likely, if it does continue this good momentum with the positive data tomorrow, you could see it potentially hitting that 50-day moving average. And if it's able to break above that, then you're going to see a very epic recovery. Based on the technicals, as I mentioned, technically all of this fear was largely artificial, but that fear turned, or that kind of suppression, artificial suppression, turned to real fear. No different than these last couple of days have been largely pushed higher because of algorithmic trading, but that algorithmic trading could actually turn to real optimism. So just kind of watch for that 50-day moving average for tomorrow. But again, it's going to largely be based on the data that does come out. But aside from that, this is the flow for today, which did signal, as you can kind of see, a lot of the smaller transactions, very much dependent on algorithmic trading. So that was the very big deal for today. Looking at the options, as I've pointed out, I like to look at out of the money. So that does mean that there's actual institutions betting on a certain direction. So it does seem kind of evenly divided between bullish and bearish. So feel free, for those of you that like to dive deep into data, to pause the video, look at some of the strike prices, see some of the action that they are doing. But this is what big money is betting on in a certain direction. And you can kind of see long term, it looks like some bullish options. Short term, it seems to be a little bit more bearish, which does match with kind of institutions selling in the short term. So maybe they're anticipating a pullback, and then that's where they'll buy more. But yeah, let me know your general thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, because of Black Friday, I did lower my prices on all of my membership tiers. So pop over to Stacked. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out, many of which are on point. So definitely check that out. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.